Before we start, I would like to ask your help to do two things. First, tell a friend or two who you think might like the show. And second, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The more reviews the show gets, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Thank you, and now on to the show.
They make the trek out to Burning Man for a week and a day. After a lot of work, oh, there's a lot of play. Party, 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 drama, 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 bitch, bitch, bitch. Year after year, they come back to scratch that itch. They all say their lives have been changed. After many years, lives have been rearranged. That change is what this show is all about. You'll see the impact of Burning Man up and out. So sit back, relax, and cancel all your plans. These are the stories about the shadow of the man.
Hello, and welcome to the Shadow of the Man Show. I'm your host, Andy. Is that gas? Oh, no, that's that Andy. Today, our guest is Metric, the one and only Metric. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Andy.
So, where does it all begin with you? What was the first year you went to the play? Like, how did and what got you there?
Oh, well, the first year I went to Burning Man was 1998.
Okay.
But I had been hearing about Burning Man for some time before that. I lived in the Alamo Square neighborhood, and so
Okay.
I would see Larry Harvey at the store buying vegetables. And I had friends who were in, I was a sound engineer in San Francisco in the 90s, among other things. And people were telling me about this. And in 97, friends came back and they said, Matt, you have to go to Burning Man. And so I started planning for Burning Man 98 in October of 97. And we did a fundraiser with my friends who were in bands. And we basically went to the playa and did Mr. Magoo Goes Camping was the name of our camp. And we stole Esplanade front property. We just hijacked it. We got there on Tuesday, which was early back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we bribed our theme camp placement person, Eric Payul, French Frog, with whiskey and smooth talk. And we built our reflective pyramid thing where we didn't belong. And then Harley Bierman, nay Bierman, now Dubois,
Uh-huh.
came and told us that we had to move. And I explained to her that we had bribed Eric fair and square and that it would ruin our our event, that we had worked hard to make this happen. And to her credit, she heard us and went and talked to the very angry people who had cards printed with their address and everything and convinced them to move down a little bit and make some space. And we gave them mushrooms and whiskey and they became great friends. And I was hooked. And that was, it was, I just loved Burning Man, that whole experience of making it happen for ourselves. We
So
were
who'd
the
you
only rock and roll on the Esplanade, probably ever.
so who did
The
you camp with? Like who'd you go with? There were these like returning
Oh
burners?
no, most of the people that I camped with were my friends from San Francisco who never went to Burning Man again after that.
Really?
Yeah, they were in their bands, they had their other jobs and so forth. I was at the time working, we've kind of skipped to, so that was my first Burning Man experience.
Yeah.
You know, but now we're talking about a little bit what it was like before Burning Man. If I talk about these guys,
Hmm.
I was in San Francisco in the 90s. Great time to be there. The dot-com thing hadn't really happened. The internet hadn't really happened. And it was easy to find a place to live. I think my rent was 425 was the most I ever paid in rent. I lived in the Lower Haight, and my friends were all in bands, and I got them gigs at places and became a sound engineer. And I met the year I moved to San Francisco was the year Burning Man moved to the Black Rock Desert. And I met a lot of people around this cacophony society thing. And
Yeah.
and
Did
so
you
I
ever
made
do any of those activities?
well, we made up our own cacophony style activities. Like we took a rubber raft down to the lake in Golden Gate Park and went and freed up the paddle boats that they just parked out on an island there. And
Yeah.
uh, and then we just paddle them around at night, and people would look at us, but they couldn't get at us because we're out in the water. And we just paddled around in the lake, and then we put the boats back and went back in our rubber raft. And so when I heard of cacophony style events, I think it was on the wane. Now I certainly heard of the very first SantaCons that were happening, and although I myself didn't dress up, I definitely went and participated in some of that. I saw it as kind of the tradition of the original SF mime troupe would do theatrical events to draw attention to political, like they would play war down Market Street and shoot each other, and they would fall down and do a chalk line around them on the street. Then they would get up and continue playing war, and it was their anti-war thing that they did. And so when I saw SantaCon, I was like, ah, this is this older San Francisco tradition that's being carried on. It's kind of like, sabotage, a monkey, in the works kind of art.
Hmm.
And so that appealed to me. But I was sound engineer, so I was always working during the summer until finally my friends convinced me to go.
Wow. Well, there's one little slight off tangent thing because I actually lived San Francisco like 94 to 2001, got the very similar time over the
Oh yeah.
period. Yeah, but I was more like Noe Valley. But yeah, the San Francisco Mime Troupe, didn't they do this thing like in Dolores Park? I thought I remember every year they had some sort of like big I don't know. I'm getting off topic, but I think it was a big spectacle that they had like in Dolores Park. It was just kind of like their political kind of theater thing. But
Spectacle.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so 98 you go and so like but everybody you go with doesn't go again. So like
Yeah.
so you're hooked. So like what how do you
So
survive? What do you do after that?
I was working at Institute for Health Policy Studies at UCSF when I
Uh-huh.
first went, and I went again in '99. And this time I went with my friend. His whole group from Corte Madera were Temple of Ishtar, not Pepe Ozan's opera thing. It was a tantric workshop camp. So it was they were swingers. It was a sex camp. And that really wasn't my thing. I was the production guy, so I went and built the thing that was the structure, and it was great. I got propositioned by a lot of women, but I was like, yeah, no, it's not really my bag. And there's one woman I wish had propositioned me, and she's the one who didn't. But that's how that
Mm.
goes. And so I went around, I set up the camp, and then just kind of ran around and tried to see where I might fit in. Geez, I remember that year there was a capitalist pig camp where some people took over that guy's camp and burned it down. That was horrible.
That
And
sounds so
uh, and
fucking
also
cool.
there was a Russian like spacecraft that fell to Earth, and it was like in
Yeah.
the
I remember like because
area.
it was like around sunset and it was like we're like the
And
funniest
it was
thing.
like it happens long enough that you're like,
No, but
oh,
it
right.
was funny because like I was telling people this experience like where it was but sunset and it was like it's just we were like walking along the playa and we look up at the sky and like in the spirit of Burning Man we were just like how the fuck did somebody do that? Like we're like maybe there's kites, maybe they're balloons, like and it was something like 9 months later where they were just like, oh yeah, that particular time and inclination and everything that booster that's been up in the air in space for like a decade or more, or whatever, has just happened to come through the sky and was like, it's just one of those
Yeah,
like bizarre
and
Burning
we're
Man
in
serendipity things.
Nevada. And in Nevada, you can see that kind of a thing really easily, where you might not have seen it if you were in San Francisco or LA or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, did you stay with Temple of Ishtar, or was
Well,
that the only year of
that
that?
was just a one year thing, and I was trying to figure out where to fit in, and so I went to Radio Free Burning Man because I
Uh-huh.
did radio in college in Binghamton, New York. and I figured maybe I would find my niche there. And so I volunteered, and Gordon, I think, was the name of the guy. And he was like, okay, I need you to move that stuff around. And he wasn't really unclear because he wasn't a department or anything like this. He was just doing radio out there.
Hmm.
And and so, but after that, I went back and it was 99 going on 2000. And I remember it was New Year's Eve and I said, I want to live at Burning Man. And I was being figurative when I was saying this, but little did I know, the next year, I stopped working at School of Medicine. And my last job was sound guy at the Fairmont Hotel. And I put in for 2 months off to go to Burning Man, and they laid me off. They said,
2 months.
we'll just
Yeah.
lay you off. We'll give you unemployment. And so I volunteered for Burning Man, and I didn't know. All I knew was Harley was a cool person, and there were rangers, but they didn't really get back in touch with me. So it seemed like they weren't very organized. But I knew that there were greeters, and so I started going to greeter meetings. And this was pretty early on. They asked me, did I have skills? I was like, some carpentry skills. So they sent me out to the work ranch to make the first lane delineator obelisks. They were these wooden pyramid structures. And I went out there. It was Memorial Day in 2000 and saw the ranch. And it was all this junk and a few shipping containers and people. And we would walk around and clean up in the desert. And there was a kind of a makeshift shade shop stretched between two shipping containers with some power tools. And I made these pyramid things. And they're like, "Hey, come back for 4th of July." So I did. I came back 4th of July, and they're like, "Stay, stay. The event is soon." I was like, "No, no, I have to go back and take care of some things, but I'll be right back." And so I came back July 16th, 2000, and that ended up being the date that I moved to Nevada and the Black Rock Desert.
Wow.
Little did I know. There were little, there's like I wasn't even clear on, it was like I was working subconsciously to that end without me. Like I brought all of my books in milk crates and put them on a pallet and cover, but I wasn't moving there. I just, I thought maybe it'd be good to have my books nearby. But then so then I volunteered for DPW. That was the first year. And
But did you still have like an apartment like in San
yeah,
Francisco?
yeah, I
Or
had a subletter in the apartment in the Lower Haight, right across from Midtown,
oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's where I lived.
Oh.
Most of the time I was in San Francisco, but I moved around 16 places in 10 years. Never did put down roots there. But so ended up not doing greeters. The one person I greeted was David Best in his rocket car. That is, and I think we had some whiskey or something like that. And then I just abandoned all my shifts and went and did DPW, and I did survey with Coyote, and I did just all the things, and in the DPW parade, and also on the ranch, I could see that there was no structure. That here was this place that was performing these services for all the volunteers and staff, and it needed structure. And I just started filling that vacuum, making sure there was gas in the generator and running extension cords and fixing shade and all of this stuff. And finally, it was time to go in October. And I remember I took the TV sets that were part of Jim Mason's installation. He had these puppets that went up and down with the world stock exchanges. So they were hooked to the internet and they would go up and down with, that was the idea anyways. And he
Yeah.
had all these TVs that were kind of props. And I brought him to the first decompression at Cafe Kokomo in San Francisco. And I had helped install the sound system there. So I knew the owners and I knew Burning Man people. So I set up, I ended up sleeping in my truck at the decompression and then going back. And my roommate at the time punched me in the eye and said, "When are you moving out?" And I said, "Tomorrow." I loaded my truck and came back out to Gerlach. And Flynn Mouthy, who was the director of operations for DPW at the time, said, "What are you doing here? We don't have a job for you." I was like, oh, I know Tom Williams and Joan Grant, who was leasing property to Burning Man at the time. And I knew these people. I was like, I'll just go work for Tom building fence for the Jassics, who owned Fly Ranch at the time. And that's what I did. I moved to Fly Ranch in November of 2000 and lived there until the following spring, which was when Burning Man bought the 200-acre property. And then they hired me in April. And by May, I had the title ranch manager.
Wow. So when they bought the ranch, they bought you too.
They
Came with
got
it.
me, yes. I used to commute from Fly Ranch to the Burning Man Ranch on a bicycle.
Wow.
For the yeah, so I commuted to the ranch via bicycle. Uh, that was interesting. I think I did it once, to be honest. But oh, and then it was Draka the Dragon. So 2001 was my first year as ranch manager. We built the Quonset hut. The man was built out on the ranch for the first time. Previously, it was like Civic Center, and so I was part of that. Spiral was the head of the man crew back then, and it was all very good experience. I started to build the infrastructure of the ranch. We had an actual shop now. We got better at doing things. We had a what we called the beach club back then. It was all made of mobile homes in a U shape with shade structure. So think of a Burning Man camp. That's
Hmm.
basically, and we had on the ranch what they called last camp, which was basically first camp from Burning Man rebuilt on the ranch. So all the LLC members had their RVs around a shade structure deck thing. That was last camp. And
Ah.
I remember when I met Will Roger, and he invited me over to the camp, and we were all drinking Maker's Mark, and we were testing the valves on the propane canisters. How you do that is you throw it into the burn barrel, and then they explode. So that's a failure. And so we were doing this, and someone had just thrown a canister into, and I said, "Watch this." And I went like this with my arms out in front and my legs wide, and the propane canister exploded and shot out between my legs,
Oh.
and the flame came and it like kissed my eyebrows and singed me a little bit. And this is while Mr. Clean and all these people were watching, and they were like, "Whoa!" And so they started calling it Metrics Mark after that, and thus the legend was born. But yeah, so
Ah.
it was very that I could come in there and create a role for myself. That's just how it was back then. Obviously, it's not like that anymore. There are people like Flynn Mouthy, who was a Survival Research Labs guy, and he was the director of operations out there. He was the guy who really had the know-how, some contractor experience from Texas, which is where he's moved back to Texas now. And there were other people like Bob Stahl, Billy Bob, they called him, which was funny. And he was a very kind of matter of fact, soft spoken guy, but he knew everything about every tool, every type of building discipline, every kind of knot. And he started the DPW manual because there was all this information that he wanted people to know. And so these were some of my early influences out there.
Yeah,
And
so I mean, were you kind of like a lonely figure in this, or is it like a small group of people? I mean, like are just kind of, I mean, because you went to Birdie Man in '98, and already like 2000, you're moving out to Gerlach. I mean, it would be
I
kind of
did,
like a
yeah.
lonely thing to do if you're just by yourself. I mean, were there others that were kind of doing
Well,
the same thing too?
well, there were some other people out there.
Yeah.
Uh, at first, Harlan Hollander, Moses of Megashire Ranch, he was out there for a while. And also, there was a couple, Elena and John, and they were living out there for a while, but none of them really. Oh, and even there was Bill Plemons was a fella, a former Marine who lived out there, very sweet man, and Dusty Balls, Mark Church, who but these were all Burning Man, and they were kind of out there working these things, but I don't know what it was that I brought. I guess it was a combination of kind of a outgoing character and multiple disciplines, and that I could do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and also, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of went out there, and there've always been other people around. When I first came out, there was dial-up internet in town, so we had internet, and that meant I could stay in touch with family and friends. And
Mhm.
then, not for anything, you hop in the car, 5 hours later, you're in San Francisco. So, even today, I commute to the Bay Area sometimes for things. It's just part of what you do. Uh, but it was, that solitude after living. I remember when I first moved out there, people said, "Oh, that kid, he's never going to make it out here." And Cowboy Carl Brooker,
Oh
Force
yeah.
Recon Marine and fence captain, said, "Mark my words, that boy's going to end up running this place." And that was in 2000 when I was still lying to myself about moving out there. And it came to pass within a year that I was running the ranch. uh, it was just something that pulled me in. Back when I first lived in San Francisco in 1991, and I hooked up with all the artist friends and Grateful Dead tour heads. I'd followed the Grateful Dead on my motorcycle from upstate New York to California, and lived in Arcata for a while before moving to San Francisco. So I knew all the Deadhead, say people selling stuff in the parking lots.
Hmm.
Was a community that I knew. So I knew this kind of vagabond community of people with hustles were out there in the world. That's what DPW was. Were people who would go from Circus Ridiculous to Burning Man and then go trim weed in California. And they had like always the next hustle, New Orleans, Humboldt, wherever it was they were going. And although I hadn't done that so much, I knew that that type of life was possible, and I had done it a little bit, 10 years prior, 1920 when I moved to San Francisco.
But
Uh,
like in 2000, I mean, that was probably I mean interesting kind of like early growth year, like transformative because I mean Burning Man up until like what 96, 97 or something was always like people just kind of bringing everything from San Francisco to there, right? I mean, I'm sure there wasn't really like the project didn't really
right.
have like a steady presence.
No, no, there were six shipping containers. Now there are hundreds probably. There were six semi trailers. It just exploded. Uh, One of the things I came up with when you look at the org shipping containers on the playa, they have SC and a number on them. That was
Yeah.
my original. I did the first inventory for Burning Man on the ranch. We had to come up with a labeling system. So I did SC, and then it was PC for private container versus shipping container, and they've continued that vein, and that's how they score all of their buildings for inventory purposes. So that's my tiny little legacy of Burning Man. But I just there was a community there that for the month before the event and for the month after, and it was the thing that I always loved about Burning Man. It was like the convention of freaks like me. It was that guy from whatever town, Denver, Seattle, Portland, uh, Virginia, Richmond, that was like the wingnut freak, punk rocker, weird artist person, and we all got together for a convention and showed off all of our weird shit. And and that's what Burning Man really was to me back then. And I was like, who wouldn't want to be a part of it? And like when I was early in San Francisco, we had this meeting of the minds of my friends where we all sat around and ideated about what's possible in the future. Talk about kids in their 20s on
Hmm.
hallucinogens in San
Oh
Francisco.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And one of the things that came out of that was, wouldn't it be great if we could organize a community of artists living in a rural place where it was self-supporting and that was the work that people did? And so I guess I was trying to realize that dream to some
Well, I
degree.
mean, I'm sure like you went there and you're helping with DPW this and that, and like you're saying, it's like, oh, we're here for a couple of months, and you're just like, this is pretty good. Well, let's keep it going.
Well,
Right.
Exodus, everybody gives you all their leftover booze and food and pot and everything, and it's all
Hmm.
there in the shipping container. So, what do you need? You don't have to pay rent. There's a travel trailer to stay in. You don't have to
Yeah.
pay for food. There's cans of chili and ramen. The water comes from a spring over there. Actually, from the desert, it would be wait,
Oh,
over
over
there.
there.
But
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
you can see it flowing
but
yeah, in the background.
but yeah, and so what would happen back then too is that you had these people who just wouldn't leave, and they weren't necessarily contributing so much.
How do
And
you deal
so
with
there
that?
was, so we would do this thing. Well, oh, everyone, it's time to go. That's what decompression would be. Was I'd round everybody up and like, okay, we're going to decompression, folks, and off we went to San Francisco. I remember giving this guy Kevon Pritchard, uh, Danger Ranger, knew that we had known him from San Francisco. He was a guy who kind of went, he became a kind of a psychotic homeless person, but he used to be a cool guy in the same cacophony, the circles in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
But he was fully gone, like long fingernails, bad smell, not speaking in coherent sentences. And
Hmm.
he was just in Gerlach with nowhere really to go. And I brought him to Reno and put him on a bus to San Francisco. And
Yeah.
that is just the best that I could do for him at the time. I remember I visited him in jail once in San Francisco when he was still coherent. How about that? Anyway,
Wow.
all these people. I think he might have worked on Man Crew a long time ago, uh, which was what I
Yeah.
ended up doing. My Burning Man, I was the ranch manager till '04. And
Okay. Yeah.
then
So 2001 to 2004.
2001 to 2004, I made a movie with Caleb Schauber, aka Shooter, that you can still find on YouTube, Black Rock Station, and it's Welcome to Black Rock Station, and I give a tour of the ranch to demystify it for Washoe County. That was the purpose of that. There was a whole thing where Washoe County and the neighbors got together and were fighting Burning Man for lack of permits on the ranch. And
Ah.
I became involved in all of that as ranch manager, made this film, and then I got appointed to the Gerlach Empire Citizen Advisory Board, which is a Washoe County advisory position, and I did that for 15 years. So
Well, is
from
that like a elected thing or like a
no, it's
government
an
kind of thing?
appointed position. It's an appointed volunteer position. It doesn't really have any authority. We just talk about permits that are up for consideration to the Planning Commission in Washoe County and give feedback and hold community meetings to get. So it's a way for the community. And I even ran a series of facilitated meetings with the community about what they thought the future of the community should be back. And this was the other thing that made me get into Burning Man was community activism. I started to become politically aware in San Francisco, and I worked on Tom Amiano's campaign for mayor, for example,
Oh yeah.
and I wanted to do more of that. Well, it was easier to do when in a small community with some focus like there was out here. And so I got involved in that way. There wasn't a lot of power, but it was being active in the
Involved.
community.
Yeah. So what was the name of that commission again?
The Gerlach Empire Citizen Advisory Board. I took over the position made vacant when Bruno Selmy stepped down.
Oh.
And then in that first year after I left the work ranch, somehow a woman had called me and asked, was I interested in buying property in town? And I said, sure, let me get back to you. I called my friend exactly, Joe Olivier,
Uh-huh.
and I said, because he had been out doing DPW work weekends, and we hit it off. We both helped Lady B with her trailer, or and stuff like this.
Hmm.
And and I said, hey, any chance you'd loan me $15,000 to buy some property in Gerlach? He said, sure. He cut a cashier's check and gave it to me, and I paid him back over 5 years. And that's where I'm sitting right now. I've been here for 20 since 2004, so 21 years on this property here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it like in the town of Gerlach or is it like outside
Yeah,
of
in the
town?
town of Gerlach.
Oh.
I live on L Tren Street, right across from the Gerlach Estates, the Burning Man trailer park.
So you lived in San Francisco like almost 10 years or something, and then
That's right.
you kind of transition up there to Gerlach. You've been there, what, 20 some odd years now?
25 years now. I've
25
lived here.
years. So you don't miss the hubbub of the big city?
Um,
Maybe go
well,
back and visit, right?
I go back. Well, so I got married in 2019.
Oh,
I
congratulations.
met my wife at a New Mooney party after 4th of July. So New Mooney were people who come out here, take hallucinogens and run around naked in the desert around in the summertime when it's not Burning Man, when it looks like this. And
Ah.
uh, and I knew some of the people there. I had just graduated. This is 2018. I had just graduated from UNR after we're skipping around my timeline here, but so I did Burning Man, and then I did Friends of Black Rock High Rock. I was their executive director, and also had Black Rock Rental, my rental company. I had a fleet of 12 travel trailers I rented out at Burning Man. Uh,
Oh.
but so after Black Rock Rental, I went back to school. I got my bachelor's of philosophy at University of Nevada, Reno, and I had
Oh,
just
okay.
finished that degree with a business minor, of course, in case I needed to get a job. And I went out to this party. I met my wife, and we hit it off splendidly. And before long, I moved in with her in Berkeley and went to grad school. So I
You
went to
left
Berkeley.
Gerlach to go to back to the Bay Area? Wow.
Well, I kept the house here.
Uh-huh.
Low Dog, who's another longtime DPW person, he lives here in the house with us,
Uh-huh.
and he lived in the single wide that I had then. We have since replaced that with a new manufactured home. So we have a nice new house with an extra bedroom for Low Dog, and Otto, who you mentioned earlier, he's coming to stay out here for a week in a
Oh,
few days.
really?
He's my good friend. I've been in touch with him ever since 2002 we met, and we
Yeah,
in
yeah.
touch. I helped
I
work
know
on her.
he's been kind of down in the dumps, with his like medical situation and
Oh,
everything. But
sure.
yeah,
But
no, it
he's a
sounds
Marine. He carries on. But yeah,
yeah.
so long story short, I got married, and we go back and forth to Berkeley from time to time, and we have friends in Grass Valley, so sometimes we make it take 2 days to get to the Bay Area. And I went to Unscrews, the Santa Cruz Regional. We
Hmm.
didn't even go to Berkeley. We just went to Unscrews and came back out here to Gerlach. And that's all right. You just put the car in cruise control, and next
Yeah.
thing you know, you're in Gerlach. The last hour and a half, it's the two-lane highway. It's pretty much straight. It's not that hard. Yeah,
So
but
do you work for Burning Man now, or what
I
was
do
last?
not work for Burning Man. Last thing I did for Burning Man was Man Crew. Man Crew. And actually Man Crew was just here, and they asked me to come back, and so next year I might go back to Man Crew. I did
Ah,
that from, well, I say 2001 when I first helped Spiral find the compound miter saw in the cafe aftermath shipping container so that he could build the man that year. That was the first year that I helped build the man, and I continued helping. And then after I left the work ranch, 2005, I did my own art at Burning Man, the Granite Skunk Coal Power LLC. There was a plan to build a coal burning power plant near Gerlach, and a
yeah.
local rancher cartographer, Dave Rumsey, gave me 10 grand to produce a artwork in protest of the power plant, the Granite Skunk Coal Power LLC. So I built a coal burning power plant on the playa and burned it down. And inside was all the information about why this was a bad idea and how to call your Congress critter to protest and so forth. And they never
Ah.
did build a coal burning power plant out here. So it worked. But so that year I camped outside what they called Little Gerlach, which was all man crew people. It was Little Gerlach was their camp with a view of the coal burning power plant. And they said, "Hey, you should come and join Man Crew." And I said, "Oh, that's a great idea." And so I started actually going and participating in Man Crew, which I did straight up till 2019,
Oh,
which
really?
is which I built the man in 2019. And actually, my wife and her sister participated that year as well. And then I didn't go to the event that year, but I did build the man. But I didn't go to Burning Man 2019 because I started grad school.
So what's the whole process with building the man? I guess it's what now, May or something. I mean, they did
Yeah, it
so
is
they
May.
just build it up there like on the ranch.
They do. Yep. They build it in the shop on the ranch. It takes about a week. It could go faster, but doing it quickly isn't the point. The point is to do it well. I mean, we do things like we put the screws in so that when you look up, you can't see them because the man is up. So when you're looking up at the man, we try to make sure that when wherever possible, the screw is coming from above down so that you can't see the screw holes. Uh,
Ah,
and sometimes people have even gone over and tried to put putty over
putty.
all the screw holes that I mean, so people that's the point of the man build is that it's like, people are rubbing on it and sanding on it and they make a brain. So they made a brain and they
Yeah,
brought in Gerlach and Mancro had a big party and I went to the saloon in town and everybody signs the brain and I got to sign the brain again.
yeah.
This time I put Ebert, my last name, but with the B-E capitalized. So B, right?
Well,
That's
actually, just my listeners might know episode 18 with Dan Miller, because
Mhm.
that's
Yeah, he
his,
was there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
know him.
just the brain of the man is his project, and he
Oh,
takes it
sure.
takes it
Yeah, yeah.
around, and so he builds it out of like the scraps.
Well,
He just
scraps, but yeah, I mean, it's all this pretty high quality wood stuff that's around
yeah,
there.
but it's
There's a
actually
lot of scraps that because you're cutting ribs, out of it's
yeah,
they don't sell, narrow sheets of ply. You get the whole sheet of plywood. That's where Frogbat came from as well.
yeah, yeah.
It's like
Otto's
auto.
thing,
It was
yeah.
the scraps of the man. And we're sitting around. What do we do? And we were all Otto
Mm.
probably told the story. We're all at the hot spring in the wintertime, and the frogs are chirping and the bats are swooping. And we came up with the unholy communion of the frogs and the bats at the springs in the winter that spawned the frog bat. Frog bat. But yeah, and then he built the frog bat used to be small, but it got bigger because it eats all those hippies. Oh,
It gets fat, yeah. So
yes, he gets
how many people build the man then? Because I remember like seeing some of these pictures. It's like what, a couple dozen of them or something?
a couple dozen,
Yeah.
right? We counted 22, eight women, so slightly more than a third were women, but there were three people not in the photo apparently. So that was about 25 people. And of those people who weren't in the photo, I don't know how many were women, but it was my wife who pointed out, oh, it's a bunch of dudes. But no, I mean, we've had Meredith and yeah, there's lots of people have been
Oh
on the
yeah, yeah.
Sweet Thing. Susan Strahan Bernowski
Hmm.
was our dear friend who's passed. She was
Yeah.
and of course the Muse Williams, who still works for the man. I think she
Hmm.
works media stuff. She's in that picture. There's a classic Man Crew picture with me with the long hair and she's the looking very fetching, sitting down right next to me there. Muse, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, generally it's about 20. They used to say, "Oh, you're elitist," which didn't occur to me. They just asked
Huh?
me and I did it. I'm but
What do
we
they mean by
opened it
that?
up to, well, they said, oh, you got, it's like, it was it's this weird cat. It's like, it's a very specific thing. And they're like, oh, well, that's not real DPW. But I mean, that's how it's like fence crew Bloods and shade crew Crips. If you don't actually see the person working, then it didn't actually happen. Our crew works harder than anybody. And
Oh.
actually, little known fact, the entire event could not happen if it were not for the lamplighters. They are the most important department.
How's that?
Everything hinges on them. Well, no, this is what a lamplighter told me once. I'm just repeating this is knowledge that I have learned. DPW, nah. Rangers, whatever. Law enforcement, feh. Lamplighters, they're the one.
So, how is the institutional knowledge preserved? Like in terms of like building the man, like I mean, is it the same design? Like it just like goes back all those years, or and
Oh
is it the
yeah, but
same
you know,
hands?
there was a year Mary Poppins took over. They were building the man in Reno at the building on 4th Street, and he had heard that the man was 40 feet tall. And he knew he had these plans. And it wasn't working. It was 40 feet tall. And so there we were building, and I actually built the man that year. I was like, what are we doing with all this? We're building these box beams or whatever. So, as a matter of fact, the man is 33 feet tall. He's 40 feet tall with the arms raised. So he was
Ah.
scaling up all of the lumber by whatever percent that is. So sometimes, and also, the shape of the face of the man has changed
Oh,
slightly.
really?
There's like the earlier shape and then the slightly newer shape. And so you have to make sure you get those angles right when you're making the jawline of the
Well,
man.
for our listeners at home, so like it used to be he used to have more of an angular jaw. Now he's more of a square jaw man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you put on a few pounds, it's just what happens with age. Your jawline just, thickens out a little. I
Got
think
some
it's just
jowls.
thickened out a little bit. Yeah, we got some jowls on the man. Maybe a chipped tooth.
Wow. So I mean, do you still go to the Burning Man every year? I mean, you're right there in Gerlach, or
I missed 2019,
uh,
and then 2020 and 2021 were the COVID years. Those which was really convenient for me because it meant that I could attend my classes virtually in Nevada and then go. I'm also active with a group. This falls under impacts of Burning Man on my life. Is while I moved to Nevada. I've lived in Nevada for 25 years now, and and uh, so I do go to Burning Man. I've helped with Temple of Transition. Kiwi Chris Hankins is someone with whom I've known for a long time. We helped build Megatropolis, Otto and I, in at Fred Hagemeister's house in Sparks, the Black Rock Burner Hostel. That
yeah.
was a good long time ago, and it was the same. If you look, Megatropolis was essentially the same idea as Burn Wall Street: prefab stackable bits that make a city. And
Ah,
and same with Temple of Transition, stackable. It's a big wedding cake. It's stackable things. And so I helped with Megatron. I helped with Burn Wall Street. Of course, I helped do all of those frog bat things, but that isn't Burning Man. That was just Fourth of July.
hmm.
I've camped at Lamplighters. I've camped at Camp Carp. Geez, where else have I? Oh, camped at Jub Jub. Jub Jub is used to be man base, used to be its own crew, and it was mostly Reno guys: Lou Zaumeyer, Brian Smith, Andy Looney, Ludi, Andy Luna, Scott Dundas, all these Reno guys, and then they had their bar was Jub Jub, Jub Jub's Thirst Parlor, and then that became an actual bar in Reno that everyone used to hang out. It was kind of like a punk rock bar that eventually had a stage. I think Guar played there.
No way,
Uh,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
really. But yeah, so I camped with Jub Jub there for a while, probably around. I remember being there 2007, 2008, because it was American Dream year, and
Mhm.
I remember that I was doing the man security at the event. And in order to slow down the line, so you can't have too many people up on the structure at a time. It just doesn't hold. And so you have a line of people who want to go up there, and while they're waiting, I would ask them civics questions. What is the Third Amendment? What are the four parts of the First Amendment? And so it was a trivia thing to see, how much people knew about civics because American Dream. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
that year I painted my truck like an American flag. It was a F-250 I got from Exactly, and it was red. And I painted the back with white and red stripes, and then the whole hood I painted blue with white stars. So it was the
Oh,
American truck. And
wow.
Reverend Billy gave a speech from my truck out by the man that year.
I think I
Uh,
remember that. Yeah.
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 But so I still go. I used to camp with Mansonian Institute for Urban Studies, which is a was exactly Joe Olivier's camp. But he has not been going to Burning Man as much, and also that was part of. So I mentioned that I had a rental business. I used to rent trailers to people, and what I would do is I would bring them out early and stage them on the desert and use them to support the temple crew or other crews who were working out there. And
Hmm.
they would stay in them and then clean them up for me to deploy for the paying customer who was coming for the week of the event. And then similarly, I would let people stay in them after the event as long as I could until I had to go and put them away. And that was part of what I thought was what how you were supposed to do it back then. And it just over time it got harder and harder to do that sort of thing. I used to have some preferred status, and then it got to the point where Burning Man didn't allow that kind of activity at all.
So are you
Uh,
Flash's competition?
I thought there was enough work for, so Flash does no running water, and he proudly asserts that. Whereas I actually tried to, uh, I provided water and generators. You know, I had people who flew in on their own plane. I would pick them up, they'd load their stuff over the fence into their trailer. They'd tie down their plane, and then I'd go drop them off at their camp. And when they were done, they would just leave, and I would go pick up their trailer when, before cleanup.
Can you
And
explain to the our listeners like what it means when people say that? And I think Flash would even say this himself that he's like Burning Man's biggest slumlord.
yeah, well, Playa Slumlord is a whole other person. Uh, yeah, I was not. I just had my people. Some people, most people were satisfied. A few people were dissatisfied. They thought that
That's
there
all.
should have been a mint on the pillow, and that and oh my God, there's dust in this closet. I didn't charge a cleaning fee. So I was like, well, I guess you get your deposit back then. Oh, wait, you didn't pay a deposit. So I did it sort of in the Flash style, but in my
Uh-huh.
own way. And ultimately, I sold all of them by 2019. But Mansonian was like the last camp that was a client also. I would either rent them trailers and uh, and it just got to be where I wanted to do my other projects, and the only way you know, uh, to kind of break the trend of me being the go-to fix-it guy was to just get out of the camp and go do something else. Uh, and now my wife is Ranger Little Debbie, and she was a
Ooh.
ranger in '97 before I ever even went to Burning Man, for a few years. And she has a bunch of her old friends have been rangering for a long time, and she's gotten back into it. And so we camp with Annex of the Rangers. It's
Mhm.
called the Annex. Last year we called it NX Camp, and we did Jesus Christ Superstar, and on all of the little wafers there was NX. And I
That's
played
awesome.
Judas. I was Judas. So we screened the whole thing, but then we dressed up in costumes and acted it out and sang along with the movie
Wow.
uh, at an X camp. So I also do. I used to do Friends of Black Rock High Rock. I was their first executive director, and I used to do the BLM interpretive camp at Burning Man for several years,
Oh, really?
from 2007 or 8 until 2012. So I was down in front with the Earth Guardians and the Rangers, and I had a camp, and you would come in, and I would tell you about the Emigrant Trails and John C. Fremont and the Pyramid Lake Paiute Wars, and
So what
and
was that called again? You said from 2008 to 2012 it was the Black Rock what?
it was Friends of Black Rock
Friends
High
Rock.
Rock. I was the
Oh,
executive director.
oh.
They're still here, but uh, but I left them in 2012. Did Burn Wall Street, and then went back to school and finished my bachelor's degree after Friends of BlackRock, and then my master's degree. And now
Yeah,
I'm
what do you
part
do
of the
now?
top, pardon?
So what do you do now there in Gerlach?
I'm stewards of the BlackRock Desert. That's blackrockstewards.org.
Oh.
And we are similarly a public lands nonprofit partner to the BLM, but our interest is more in the off-highway vehicle community and people who use their vehicles off the highway in the Black Rock Desert, which, by the way, is every single person who drives to Burning Man. Your vehicle is now an off-highway vehicle at Burning Man in the National Conservation Area. But what I'm interested in is this Memorial Day is Black Rock Rendezvous. And so this podcast will come out after this Memorial Day.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I will be conducting an Emigrant Trail tour on
Oh.
Sunday, May 25th. And I will prepare a little booklet that I hand to people, and it will have the history of John C. Fremont, Kit Carson's second expedition, Jesse Applegate, and Peter Lassen, for whom the Applegate Lassen Emigrant Trail are named. and also basically talking about the history of the Emigrant Trail. And I'll take people from Black Rock to Soldier Meadows along the Emigrant Trail, showing them historical points of interest along the way.
So does any of that trail like physically like still exist, like the wagon ruts or anything? Or
That's correct. There are places
really?
where you can literally still see the wagon ruts. And
Wow.
I mean, there's organizations that like Oregon, California Trails Association or Trails West. Trails West has the T markers that you see made out of railroad rail.
Yeah.
And but you know what I've seen with a lot of these groups is that they age out. So the Octa guys that I met were all in their 80s and 90s. And you know, even I participate in the Nevada Historical Society. We just went to their event. Now that was a little bit more because people are recognized for their historic buildings. But did you know that the Reno Historical Society event had an open bar? Neither did I
Ooh.
until I got there. But wow, you know, I
They
mean,
try to attract the
that's pretty
younger
good. How do
folks.
I get to be a member of this group? But I went there as a clamper, and I want to talk briefly. I
What's that?
mentioned them before. So, E. Clampus Vitus is a historical society throughout the West, mostly in California and Nevada. And all of those Reno, Jub Jub, man base guys, they were all clampers. I didn't know what a clamper was, but there was a guy, my good friend Gino Oliver, and he worked as a volunteer for me at the interpretive camp, the BLM camp. And he would dress in period gear and talk about these historical people in the Black Rock Desert. Well, there was a year I had a cancellation for a 33-foot RV. I said, "Hey Gino, why don't you stay in this RV?" And I had Friends of Black Rock pay $1,000 to my rental company to pay for the RV rental for Gino. And he was like, "This is great. You should join Eclampus Vitus." He had been a clamper since, well, he was the humbug back in 1980. The Noble Grand Humbug is the head of each chapter.
Ah, okay.
There are dozens of chapters, mostly through California and Nevada, but also Arizona, Colorado, yeah, just all throughout the West. And so I went and I became a member of Eclampus Vitus. And after I left Friends of BlackRock, I became more active and became their Noble Grand Humbug in 2020, which was, that's why I say it was very convenient for me because I was able to take my classes in Virginia City, which is where our clubhouse is, and finish my class at 6 o'clock and then go gavel in the meeting at 7 o'clock. And what we do is we put historical monuments at places, usually about mining history, but also a lot of saloons and brothels throughout the West, and places that might otherwise go unrecognized. When I was the humbug, I did my monument at Empire. So when you drive past Empire, you'll see a Nevada-shaped concrete monolith with a granite plaque embedded in it. And that's what I built as my historical monument when I was the
Oh,
humbug. And it reads like the beginning of Nomadland. It talks about the U.S. gypsum sheetrock manufacturing plant that used to be there.
wow. That's incredible. All right. I think this kind of gets us on to our next portion of the show. Where did it all begin with little baby Metric? Where'd you grow up? We said you came from what, upstate New
Oh,
York? Or?
yeah. Well, I was born in Syracuse.
Okay.
My dad is from Oswego, New York. There's a little town north of Syracuse, Onondaga County. Well, I think Oswego is its own county. Onondaga is Syracuse. But I lived there until I was 3. My folks split. We lived for a while near Philadelphia in Collingswood, New Jersey. But then we all moved to my brother, sister, mother, and stepfather to Alexandria, Virginia, which is outside of D.C. So I lived there my formative years, 1976 to 1988. So usually when people say where I'm from, I say Alexandria because that's where I went to high school. T.C. Williams, remember the Titans? Denzel Washington movie, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where yeah. Yeah, Alexandria has the lowest amount of African American home ownership, and DC has the highest. That tells you a lot about the willing social segregation of the area around DC. Uh, but you know, and that's the kind of stuff you find out about in grad school. Of
Oh
course, when I
yeah.
was I didn't figure that out till I went from the Catholic school to the public school, and I was like, I see the black kids in the hallway. Why aren't they in any of my classes? Well, it's because they're in the regular classes. I was in the AP classes. There were like two black kids in there. So it was this weird segregation that was still going on
Yeah.
right in the public school in the city of Alexandria.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
So you
yeah, but
graduated high school, what, 88, you said?
88,
Oh.
graduated high school. And actually, I left before I was done, and I was able to finish my final exams at my dad's in upstate New York. So I was 18. I moved. I had to get out of my mom's house. Moved up to my dad's in Binghamton. I went to SUNY Binghamton for a year. Did radio, WHRW 90.5 FM, and met all the Deadheads that I then went on Grateful Dead tour, and a bunch of them moved to San Francisco when I did. So I knew some people from college in San Francisco. They were all seniors where I would have been a freshman. So I moved to, so lived in New York for a little over a year, bought a motorcycle, followed the Grateful Dead to California, ended up in San Francisco, and yeah, I did sound. I was a sound engineer eventually. Before that, I worked for the Red and White Fleet at Pier 41, the Ben and Jerry's franchise, and the Booze Cruise on the right next to Pier
Yeah.
39 is Pier 41. So blue and gold was at Pier 39, and red and white at Pier 41. It's like Stanford and Cal, right? Uh, and so I worked for the Stanford group there, and we actually had the Hells Angels on a boat, the Red and White Fleet. I don't know if you know this. The Hells Angels are the red and white. And at
Yeah,
that
that's right.
time, I was
Yeah.
just starting to be a sound engineer. So I was the bar manager, and I knew the Chris Cobb Blues Band. That was the band. So I was helping set up the band, helping set up the bar. And like the Oakland HAMC guy sees me and he's like, man, this guy's all over it. You have to come back to our clubhouse. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I couldn't do that. And it was like, no, no, we need you to drive. Like he would not take no for an answer. Made me drive the truck, and it ran out of gas on the Embarcadero. There's Harleys flying around and cops everywhere, and I'm just standing there. He's crawling underneath it. He fixes the truck on the Embarcadero. We drive to the clubhouse, and after a while, he was gone, and some guy looked over me and said, "Looks like you don't belong here." I said, "You're right. Bye." Got the hell out of there. But yeah, so San Francisco in the '90s. You were there '94 to
Yeah.
2000, so
2000,
it was a good time. I did sound at
it was a great time.
Trocadero and
Yeah.
uh, Kennel Club and Paradise
Mhm.
Lounge
Yep.
and a little bit of Warfield Shoreline type, pro stuff. And I was local 16 adjacent, but I never did join that's the Yahtzee union. But you have to. So I did all that stuff, and I always wanted to be involved, kind of with art and arts. But and I had my own little band stuff, and but I always was more about helping to produce art for other people, like Temple of Ishtar or Mansonian Institute.
So
Uh,
1998, like your band buddies or your friends, your music buddies, like you were like, let's go out to Burning Man, and then that's when you got bit by the bug. I mean, you
that's
hadn't
right.
been out to Nevada like or the Dead Black
Just
Rock before that,
Just
right?
driving through on the motorcycle when I moved west. We stopped in Reno one night. We were going to sleep in Idlewild Park, and some locals saw us, and my motorcycle had a big pack on it with a rifle sticking up off of it. And so with New York plates, so I looked very interesting, and long hair back then too.
Hmm.
And so they came up. They're like, "Oh, don't sleep in the park; they'll arrest you." But here, smoke this pot. Here, have a steak. We got some beers. They told us to go to Truckee, and so we did. We had a bunch of beers and steaks and pot, and then rode to Truckee and slept the night in Truckee instead, and that was nice.
Wow.
But no, I hadn't really spent any time in Nevada. I think I'd been back to Reno once, and it was kind of a gambling town or something. But I've never had a permanent address in Reno. I didn't even live in Gerlach at first. I lived on the Fly Ranch the first 4 years I lived out here.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's a whole other thing. Let's see, what other
So
things? Oh,
yeah. So what's it all mean?
what does it all
What's it
mean?
all mean? Like, I don't know.
You
What's
know,
been the impact of Burning Man, the influence on your life?
well, like I said, I moved to Nevada, and because I worked for Burning Man, and I knew that I had a place to land, and then I had a business that was modeling the way for rural economic development, and that helped put me through undergrad. And so that was the thing. And, I wouldn't have been around to do the nonprofit management work that I did before I had any degree. And now I built a nonprofit that I'm working on. We have a KBRU FM, Black Rock University. I have a FCC construction permit to build a radio station in Gerlach.
Oh, really?
We have that up and running, 92.5 FM at Burning Man this year and into the future. So even whatever time this podcast may, if you come out to Gerlach or if you look at kbru.org, might be kbrufm.org, I don't remember. But anyways, blackrockstewards.org is where you could find all of
Okay.
those ways to get to whatever's going on with me. If you want to know what's going on with me in the present and future, go there. If you want to know the stuff I've done in the past, go to metric.cc.
Mm.
That's the past. Can be found there. And now can be found now. Now, so how long is now? Now doesn't take up any space, right? It just defines the difference, the past and the future. But the past isn't real because it's already happened. And the future isn't real because it hasn't happened yet. So what is time? There is no time. It's all just an illusion.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay. Any final words? Anything else?
Final words.
Words with
You
wisdom?
know, I think I mentioned all of the things that yeah, I think that Burning Man is it's interesting because when you're inside and when you're close to Burning Man, there can be this kind of cultish aspect to it.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of that. It's part of what made me step back from it a little bit. Like when I said, "What do you mean, man crew elitist?" I had no idea. But and part of that is that whenever I worked for Burning Man, I was out here in Nevada. I wasn't walking around going to the bars with my Doc Martens and being cool in front of a whole bunch of people with Burning Man. I mean, I guess I have a bit of it now. I have a patch jacket that I wear. It says "Man Crew" on the back and all that stuff. But I'm here to tell you, most people in the world do not know about Burning Man. And so for us, where it's this all-encompassing thing, it seems like it's, the alpha, omega, the past, the future, and the now.
Hmm.
Uh, but for a lot of people, it's barely a mention on Malcolm in the Middle, and I think I heard something about it, on a Simpsons episode,
Yeah,
and
Simpsons.
that's about it. And so I think that Burning Man is a positive influence on the people who had the experience. It's easy to get the wrong thing. That sure there's the influencers and the sparkle ponies and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, Burning Man is more reflects what you put into it back at you. And so I tell people who've never gone before, and even people who have gone and become jaded, well, it's then you're gonna get jaded back if that's what you're bringing there. Do something else. I haven't done the one same thing the whole 25, 28 years of Burning Man.
What's that?
I I've done something else.
Oh,
I found a new way to contribute and to be involved. And I think that's what it takes in any endeavor, certainly at Burning Man.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean the thing that always kind of keeps me coming back, and I think you kind of hit it upon it like here and there, is just like community, like connections, like like there's a itinerant kind of people like traveling, it's like, oh, they spend this season in Northern California, like shaping bud, or they might work on, like, there'd be carnies working on like circuses here or there, but I don't know. I mean, it just seems like there's like a definitely like a Burning Man's a community of people. As I always say, it's like a uh not quite a home for homeless, but but like maybe a home for people who come from like broken homes or something.
It's kind of nice. I mean, it's
Like,
very welcoming.
yeah.
People, we live in an increasingly kind of strident closed society. I mean,
Yeah.
supposedly we were on this progressive swing, and and maybe that's still going on, and that it's just a whiplash effect from that. And so there still needs to be kind of a place where people can come together uh, uh, to say that that you're okay. I mean, people
Or
who are non-conforming, whether social, gender, whatever it is, you're all okay. It's okay.
yeah.
And and Burning Man is definitely a place that does that, where you can just kind of be yourself. I remember, I'm not going to name names, but I remember seeing somebody at Burning Man, and it was just out on the playa by Disorient off the edge of the world or something. And it was somebody that I wouldn't have expected, and he was wearing a big bearded, fairly stocky man wearing a very nice sundress with a bonnet and a parasol
Okay.
and walking along, and I saw that he saw me and recognized him, and he had like this momentary thrill of like, was I going to call him out on, him wearing his wonderful dress and whatever. And and I just smiled, and I could see him relax. And and that's what Burning Man is for, to some degree, is it's like, you can be you, and that's beautiful, and you can be recognized for the beauty that is you at Burning Man, where you can't necessarily be recognized for it elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's also it's a place. It's like you can have the freedom, to just express yourself, and it's like, yeah, it's go crazy, like paint your body, wear whatever you want. I mean,
Sure. I
yeah,
got
yeah,
my thing now is I've made the air cannon, so it's a potato gun essentially.
yeah. I saw that
It's
on
a
like social
compressed
media. So,
air. And I've made it looks it's a big green. So I painted it Ryobi green and put a Ryobi decal on it. So it
oh
looks like it's a
yeah.
Ryobi thing. And it's just compressed air. So you hook it up to the compressor. And I've had up to about 150 pounds of pressure. And I've got these little Earth stress balls that I got at Reno Earth Day, where I had the Stewards of BlackRock booth, and Nevada Energy was giving them away. So they're little squishy Earths, and you squish them, and like green comes out and then goes back in, right? And so this is why I've been shooting out of them, and it hucks them a long way. And so I'm going to set them up I don't know what I'm going to do with Burning Man, because they go a pretty long way. But what I want to do is target basically mortar ballistics. Think Olympic cornhole at like a quarter mile, because this thing goes pretty far. And so we're going to test them out over Memorial Day and 4th of July and figure out what to do. You don't have to protect the whole area; you just have to protect an area where they're coming down, right? So.
That's not gonna hurt someone too bad, right?
No, I won't hurt anybody. I mean, well, and I have these other fluffy things that wouldn't hurt you even if you. Well, we already tried. I shot one of these earth things at me at close range, and it was just like a good stiff slap on the back. It wasn't that bad,
Yeah.
but they go flying. Yep, they're very
All
good.
right. So if anyone wants to reach you, how would they go about that? Or what do you even
You
want
know,
to?
I'm still on Facebook. Of course, they could reach out through Stewards of the Black Rock Desert. I am the treasurer on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, I'm developing. I do a Guru Road restoration project. Guru Road is a art installation that was built 1978 to 1995, just outside of Gerlach. Predates Burning Man. And Dwayne Doobie Williams, it's also called Doobie Lane sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
he used to walk along there and smoke a joint while walking his dogs. And he started carving little witticisms and sayings into rocks, mirroring petroglyphs that he had seen from Paiutes
What was
that
this
are.
called?
It's called Guru Road or Doobie Lane.
Oh.
There's a book out there, Doobie Lane by Peter Goen, that talks about the road and has a bunch of pictures. Gary Snyder, the Pulitzer Prize winning beat poet, discovered it in the 90s with his wife when he was traveling through the region, and wrote about it and talks to Peter Goen about it in that book. And and when I first moved out here in 2001, when I was the ranch manager, I started a restoration effort that lasted about 4 years then, with Dwayne Williams II, the son of Doobie, who had died in 95. And so we did about 4 years. There were some rock slides that took out big portions of the road. And then Friends of Black Rock, when I was with them, and even after I left, they were also doing some uh, restoration work on the road. And then more recently, there was more vandalism and more impacts there. And so I talked to Regan Williams, the grandson now. Now Dwayne the second died a year ago this past March. And so now Stewards of BlackRock has a contract for a 2 year restoration effort out there. Through all of this, I've learned about all of the different installations and can explain and give interpretation on the road. And I'm probably going to, well, a part of the plan, we're doing a tourism grant with Travel Nevada, executed by Friends of BlackRock. So we're all partners together. And I'm going to put in an interpretive sign that explains the whole thing near the front. That's got to wait till next year. And I'm going to put together a series of videos that explain each art installation, and
Wow.
as well as physically fixing the art installations. A lot of it is pulling weeds, plants that have grown to obscure rocks. In some places, there was some vandalism. We've already addressed a lot of that. Sometimes it's just cows. Cows go and rub up against things and knock them over.
Hmm.
And it's the weather is harsh and everything else. But so we're trying to get it back closer to what it was when each of the installations was first made, at least so that you can get the gist of installations. They all have a different kind of a message. For example, Ground Zero is the first thing you see. Dwayne Williams was a U.S. Marine at Nagasaki, and he saw the impact of the nuclear bomb blast there. And so he built Ground Zero, and it looks like concentric circles like a bomb blast. And carved in a rock in the middle, it says Ground Zero. And it's a bunch of white rock in the middle, and then red rock. And then circumferences going out, it says 10 miles, 20 miles, 30
Wow.
miles, and a rock is carved in it. It says the alternative to negotiation. And the idea was that this was his anti-war commentary, essentially. Uh, and so the other things are just carvings in rocks that says, and some are series of rocks that tell a short little witticism. But yeah, and so I give tours out there, and I'm doing restoration work out there.
Where is that again? It's just
It's
near Gerlach?
mile marker 2, Route 34, on your way to Burning Man. You'll see it off to the left there. You can drive through in a regular car, but it is a dirt road there, and when it rains, sometimes there's muddy puddles that you might be able to
Oh,
get stuck in. But
wow.
maybe we'll address those. We'll
Have to
fill them in.
check that out. All right. Well, I think we're coming up on the time. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview. I'm sure everyone's
Sure,
going to
thank
love
you,
it.
Andy.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe, rate, and review it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. The more reviews the show has, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Also, please tell a friend and share this show with anyone that you think might like it. Word of mouth reaches quite far, especially in the Burning Man community. If you would like to contact us, please send an email to shadowofthemanpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow Shadow of the Man on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, and YouTube. The links for all of these are available at shadowoftheman.com. Feel free to use any of these social media accounts to provide any feedback you might have. Your thoughts on the show are greatly appreciated. Thank you, and see you soon for a new episode of The Shadow of the Man.
Thank you for listening to this latest show. We have to make another one, so gotta go. Don't worry, for next month we already have one in the can. Very soon you'll be listening to a new Shadow of the Man.